What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. I'm BobbyFi, back with my man, Eric Sheets-Haber. We are going to be breaking down tonight's massive 9-game NBA slate, which has a lot of action. Coming off of a fun football wildcard weekend, a little bit profitable for me, nothing special, but it's a decent weekend. Ready to get into the playoffs as that goes, but really just turning the focus back to basketball tonight. And Sheets, we were talking pre-show about how I don't play that much basketball on the weekend. Sometimes I do. I just was really into the football. I wasn't feeling great physically, so I just wanted to relax and watch some football. So I skipped the weekend for basketball, but it sounded like there was some interesting things. What are your sort of thoughts? Like, first of all, how was your weekend and what happened there? And then what are your thoughts about this slate as you just look at it?
Yeah, I mean, as you hope to be transparent. You know, if you watched our reviews of the slate, the NFL slate going in, you wouldn't be surprised to learn that, you know, I was basically about blah and even, because that's basically reflected my takes. The one thing I did do that I thought was bright, which I don't do as much as I should, is after day one of the 2-game slate where I had basically zero Derrick Henry. I usually would just start pouting and like doing whatever and just forget about it. But I ended up saying, you know what, if I'm going to lose anyway, let's try to pivot off of some of these chalkier guys and just gamble with some others. And while I didn't like Cook as much as you did, for the purposes of what I had to do at this point, I'm like, you know, now I have to take Cook. You know, I got to fade Kamara, I got to fade Thomas. You know, I got to play Cook, I got to play DJ Metcalf, and I ended up basically breaking even in football for no other reason than I just kind of just didn't give up on the slate. But what you do have to do is kind of give up on your takes, sort of. You know what I mean? And then you just have to go with the lower owned guys when you have no shot to win if you stay with the chalkier, better plays. So that was my success over the weekend. I'll leave it at that.
Sounds good. What do you think about this NBA slate as we get into it?
So you always ask me for kind of like an overview of the slate, and I always just say, well, let's just see how it goes. There was one theme that I found interesting that I think we're going to get to as we go through this, is that I think there are a lot of kind of good high upside score plays in very tough matchups. So I think that's going to be kind of an interesting theme to go through. This is how much you're willing to forgive the matchup in the name of a good upside type scorer. You know, we talked about this a couple of slates ago. I think we were talking about Jimmy Butler in context, where you're saying, well, you know, somebody said, was it Jack said this? You know what I mean? That you know, you want to take these good players not in the soft matchups, you want to take them into tough matchups because they'll be lower owned and they'll get up there. You know, you can't stop these guys. Doesn't matter who you are. So I think that could be an interesting theme going through today's slate is finding which of these matchups you could forgive and which ones you can't.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, let's start it off with the first game. We'll go game by game because
Sure.
My initial take on this slate is like I actually have about 10 players that I'm just sort of rotating that I'm very interested in, all 10, and then I'm sort of interested in piecing in other spots. So we'll get to it, but there's like immediately I had a bunch of guys who I wanted 30+% of because I felt like it's that kind of a slate for me. But we'll see as we go through the games. Maybe we'll have some different takes, and obviously we've got some injury news as usual to get through.
Yeah.
So you want to start it off with one of the better ones, Boston and Washington?
Well, you know, the thing is the Washington. There are two teams that have been basically driving the all of DFS during the last couple of weeks due to their injury situation, and that's been Washington and Minnesota. In large part because they've been really just holding off until very, very late to release news on the key players. Like Minnesota, I don't think plays tonight, but they've been basically listing Cat as questionable, even though he's probably out for a long time, you know. What it does is it puts a lot of pressure on DFS players to wait, and then just redo everything. And meanwhile, and Wiggins and all this Minnesota stuff, they just kind of hold off. And on the Washington side, like if this game, for example, like every day, whether Beal plays, it becomes a real huge turning point for the slate because the context of this team is just so different with him in versus with him out, you know? So like in the last game they played, I thought, you know, I'm going to take Beal, I'm going to do whatever. And then they announced him out. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, do I have to fade? Can I fade Jordan McRae? You know what I mean? And you go into these and you just whole take of the slate just changes in a moment's notice. I know it's easy to say, well, why don't you just prepare for both? You know, why don't you say, what am I going to do slate-wise if Beal's in? But it's not that easy because there's a lot of things, a lot of pivot points like that. But with that said, I mean, that's a really big deal tonight. He remains questionable. He's missed 4 of the last, 5 games. And, you know, not to mention it's a tough matchup, but, you know, I'm unlike you in this respect. Like if Beal plays, I actually don't want to play him. You know, like I'm just not interested, particularly in the returning from injury, not 100% healthy guys when you got to pay a lot for them, and and the matchup is whatever. So he's projected to be just kind of okay, and I really don't have much interest in him, even if he plays. If he doesn't play, then it's back to these other guys. I mean, it's back to McRae, who just freaking, I don't know who the hell this guy is. I guess I should have known, but the guy just smashes every game. It's just crazy. And then Isaiah Thomas off that ridiculous ejection from a couple of days ago. He's going to be back. I don't know how many minutes he'll play if Beal's out. And maybe I'm lazy. I don't want to just handicap assuming Beal's out because it's just so hard. But if he's out, you have to just go back to those guys. If I had to pick a guy who is, I was about to say, who I'd want to play either way, but even still, if Beal plays, I wouldn't play him. Troy Brown's minutes are somewhat safe, but he's 6,100. Again, it's a very, very tough side of the game. I'll defer to you on that, but I wasn't going to play anybody from them. On Brooklyn, a couple of things. First of all,
not Brooklyn, Boston.
Oh, sorry about that. On Boston, all right. So they have the the nut matchup, right? And as a result of this, they're all getting priced up. Not priced up. They're all being projected really well, which means they're all going to be probably high owned. Especially with Kemba continuing to be out. So you go back to the normal guys. Like Marcus Smart projects to be the best value of them all. And then slightly behind that, you have Hayward and Brown, and then you're down to Tatum. And then you can make that decision between Tice and Cantor if you want to. So for me, I mean, if I would love to be able to stack a game like this, but I don't think I'm going to end up doing it. I think I might end up, and this is my initial build, whatever, just because Smart fit into this lineup as far as price goes, that's where he came. But maybe I'll take one of the Boston guys, something like that. I don't know if I want to spend on two of them, but that's where I'm not too excited about making such a big deal about this game.
Yeah, I'm extremely interested in the Boston side of this, especially just to go through my thoughts real quickly. Like, I don't think I'll have any lineup without one of them. And I think majority of them will have two. I really like the spot for all these guys. I think the prices are reasonable. I think we're going to get lower ownership as well as it's going to be high ownership. Don't get me wrong, but like Hayward in this same spot at 7K versus Atlanta, which is another good matchup. But this is actually an even better matchup because you're on the road at Washington. Like, you should hypothetically think the game could stay closer, even though we don't know about Beal. Obviously, it's kind of a weird one, but again, I'll call it a better matchup. And you had a guy who was like 40% owned, and now he's probably going to be, I think, less than half of that possibly. I think that he's a guy I want to prioritize along with Brown and Smart and Tatum. And Smart is the number one guy for me, but I do think there's bust in there. And I think he'll also be the highest owned. So I'm still going to play him. It's just too good a matchup. I want to be over the field. I think that I'll probably have a minimum of 40% of Marcus Smart tonight. And I think that with the other guys, like, I find myself wanting to have they're four of the guys who I like the most, and that's Brown, Hayward, and Tatum. I don't know that you want to play all of them together, but I don't think it's the worst idea to play three of them together if you're going to run it back. And I do think that on the Washington side, there's going to be opportunity. I'm not as sold on this Boston defense as everybody else is. I know they're better with Smart, especially theoretically, but we saw that night against Atlanta what happened. I mean, if John Collins doesn't get hurt, I might win everything, because I did exactly what we talked about on that show. I played Collins with Smart and then Trae Young. And Trae Young was 3% owned. Collins was 6% owned. And, Trae Young had a game where he shot 40% or whatever and still had 50-plus fantasy points at 9K. But anyway, I do think on the other side of this, if Beal does play, I'm definitely interested. Beal's not a guy who gets limited very often when he plays. Unless he gets injured in the game, he's going to play all the minutes if the game's close. I feel a little bit like there's a good chance he doesn't play. So we'll see. But I don't know. We don't need to speculate because it's going to be the first game. If he's not playing, I do think that – and whether he plays or not, I think Isaiah Thomas is super interesting. Like, I understand the minutes have been down and then he had the ejection, but the price has come so far down, and I think there's a minutes upside, especially if there's no Beal. But at 24 projected minutes, I think that you could see 28 plus depending on how the game goes. And I really think that Isaiah is – look, we saw him have one of his better games at Boston earlier in the year. Like, if there's something to be angry about, this team cost him hundreds of millions of dollars. I know he loves them too, but I know it's a home game. It's not in Boston, but I just think Isaiah at 4.1, maybe he takes an extra few shots, and that just gives him a better chance. I really like him regardless. I just think the price is interesting, and I think he's going to have no ownership. And if that changes, we can check back later. And then you've got possess. I can never pronounce his name right. Depending on Mahinmi's health, like these guys are going to have to. Somebody's going to have to play a little bit of minutes that are somewhat big. So possess. I can't pronounce it again.
Call him. The announcers call him AP.
Yeah. Okay. We'll call him AP then. I think that he's going to get. I think there's a lot of upside on his potential minutes here, whether Mahinmi plays or not. So I think he's a wild card play if Mahinmi plays. But if there's no Mahinmi, he becomes a really, really strong play. And I also think that you can dabble with any of these other guys, the Ishes and the Troy Browns. Again, if no Beal, Troy Brown, Jordan McRae, completely interesting. Yeah, is along with Ish, along with Gary Payton even. But assuming Beal does play, I don't think I'm going to play any of those guys.
I have another take, something to watch for. The possibility that one of these guys is back today, whether it be Bertans or Brian or something like that, because they released what's his name, Jonathan Williams, and I don't know if they would do that.
That was weird.
if one of these guys might not be coming back, so I'm going to be looking for something during the course of the day saying Bertans upgraded to questionable or Brian upgraded to questionable or something like that. I don't know how much that impacts like Beal, for example, but it definitely just makes some of these other guys a little less viable. I mean, like if they announce that Brian is playing, I mean, obviously the AP guy, I'm not playing. So again, that is one thing that I heard that's possible. I mean, that one of these guys might get moved up, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, so that's obviously one of the games that I'm definitely have a ton of interest in. And let's move on to the next one, which would you have on your screen as Indy and Charlotte. What do you think about this game?
All right. So Indy and Charlotte, the first thing is that Brogdon is out. So my desire in this game on the Indiana side is really just 2.5 fold. Two guys project pretty well. Aaron Holiday again. Projects to be a pretty good play, even though he's 5,800. He still projects to be a pretty good value actually as a starting point guard against Charlotte. And Sabonis, continues to just do his thing. I still, at 8,600, it seems kind of bizarre to play him, but he's projected to be a pretty decent play. I like to again think of him as someone who's not going to break the slate for me, but he might be good enough to kind of hold his, 45 to 50 points in there. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I'm going to be able to go down to Miles Turner, but he would be the next guy on there. And the other thing is that I think TJ McConnell is questionable. If he's out, then you might be able to do stuff like, I don't know, just other guys that might make Edmund Sumner, I don't know, and Justin Holiday and even Doug McDermott. But again, on the big slate, I don't know if the Indiana side of this game is going to be where I'm going to prioritize. On Charlotte, Devontae Graham is, he's just that guy who I'm always just kind of going to put in until further notice. Now, I will say, and this goes both ways, he's actually been more reluctant in the last several weeks to shoot it that much until he really needed to later in the game. Like Rozier's been really taking a lot of shots, and Graham's been very content to get his assists, which is also good, but he's been playing just a carload of minutes. I mean, his minutes just so freaking strong that between his upside and his minutes and whatever, I mean, what I did, it's so funny, like in this particular kind of lineup, I went back and forth between guys that profiled just a little differently, like what would happen if I went from up to Trae Young as opposed to down to Devontae Graham. And not that they're exactly the same type of player, but Graham is a guy like, not quite like Levine, Booker, and those kind of guys, but he's in that realm of guys that always have that upside that I kind of want to have a piece of. So he'd be a guy I'd like. And Rozier, for better or worse, man, he's active. He's been trying. So he's always has some upside. So one of those two guys, if you made a rule, not even a rule, if you played one of those two guys in your lineups, wouldn't be bad. Now, again, this is one of those games where, it's not an easy matchup. I mean, Indiana, you can say they're not as good as people think, but they're not bad, and they're better than average. So it's not the easiest matchup in the world, but, for that, you're getting lower ownership. So I think Devontae Graham certainly in my, shorter list of guards I'm going to play.
Yeah, I think that honestly is not a great pace game. Real quick for me on the Indy side of the ball, I actually think that Sabonis is a terrific play. I think that I don't know how much I'll end up with of him, but I like him a lot. And I really like Jeremy Lamb. Okay, so he took his season, and like you guys are going to just go after me because of the narrative stuff, but he took his season high in attempts in the game earlier this year at Charlotte, his first game ever as a non-Charlotte Hornet in Charlotte, since he had been with the Hornets. He took 19 shots in that game. That was with Brogdon. There's no Brogdon here. His usage has gone up. It will go up. I know he's not the most exciting play in the world at this price, but I think he's definitely in play. I wish he was a little cheaper, but I do think he's in play. And I sort of think that it's a really good matchup for all these indie guys. So I think that if you want to sprinkle, I can say all the way through TJ Warren, Miles Turner, even guys like Doug McDermott, who has some upside. And that sounds weird, but against the Charlotte team at 3.1, I could see those guys being sprinkles as parts of a large, maybe either a mini game stack or just a large pool of players that you're trying to decide between. There's certainly enough upside against the Charlotte team. It's a bump up for the indie guys, even though Charlotte's not like they play lightning quick or anything. They just don't play. They're not a terrific defensive team. And you can beat them up front. You can beat them at the guards. I think that on the Charlotte side, I sort of have a similar interest level in both Rozier and Devontae Graham. I'm a little bit struggling with this one because I really like Devontae Graham. It's just a matter of, will I prioritize him over, guys like Levine at the end of the day? Is Rozier maybe a better play because he's cheaper? And also, like, they're both safe, but like safer for 6.7 feels a little bit better than, I don't know. I'm having a little trouble with that one. And I don't mind even taking shots on Bridges, but again, we got a big slate. So maybe not worth going there. The one thing is they might need more size in this matchup just to match up with the bigs of Indy. So it could lead to more minutes for a guy like Biyombo, especially potentially Zeller, or they could slide Washington over there or play Bridges, but I think that they're better off with trying to play some big guys. So Biyombo, don't be surprised if he's around 30 minutes, at which point his 4.3K price tag, it becomes really interesting.
Yeah, I got to remember to consider that because, again, I had this low 4K center in there that I wanted to talk about later anyway. So I have to remember to come back to Biyombo when I reanalyze everything.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what's the so next, I guess, is Brooklyn against Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the first thing I would like to say, again, I don't want to make this too much about basketball. I want to make it more about DFS, but I'd like to say that, with LeVert, I mean, he came back, he's rested, whatever, so he's slowly coming back, and I guess Kyrie will be back eventually. I'm going to miss watching Dinwiddie like when all these guys come back. He's been playing, he's really taken on this role nicely. He played really well. He had an incredible baseline drive jam a couple of days ago. And so he's, I wonder how guys like that play when they know that their kind of run is like the point, and their run is the leader is coming to an end pretty soon. But nonetheless, he's projecting to be a pretty decent play, as he always is, especially with LeVert back being out for this game. They're resting him, I guess, because he just came back. And this, I guess, the first end of the back-to-back maybe. Mm-hmm. So the one that's confusing to me is what's going on at center with Jared Allen and DeAndre Jordan. I think they benched Allen a few games ago. I don't know if they're starting again. And they had Jordan start because Allen had some shaky games. Because he's like normally a guy I like to play, Jared Allen. I'm just a little nervous to do that. But I guess that's why he's 5,400. And this matchup is not easy either. So the one thing I will say about the Nets side is what I always do if I am going to play multiple guys for the Nets is I will always just make sure to, pick one between Temple, Harris, and Prince. You know what I mean? And not to say I'm going to stack this game really, but that's something I always think about doing is just playing Dinwiddie with one of those 2-3 guys because they're not all going to be able to get those shots and they're not all going to be able to go off. So not that any of those guys are that great anyway. I just figured I'd bring that up. So from the Nets side, I would, Dinwiddie could be a play. I find it incredibly difficult to justify playing him when you have, for example, Graham and Levine at the same price or lower. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, but he's certainly a guy I could use as kind of as a pivot off those guys. But why pivot if they're going to be 10% owned or less anyway? I don't know. On the Orlando side, you would think that these be the guys that would project well because they get tell me about this, because you get the quote-unquote pace matchup. But this is my problem. Like when Orlando plays anybody, they have a pace matchup, right? They're pace up because they're always slower than themselves. I mean, they're always faster than themselves when they're playing. But the guys on Orlando, Vucevic looks like a tremendous play. As a matter of fact, I mean, 8,300. You think about it, it's a different position, but only 500 more than Graham and Levine. I mean, Vuce is going to be certainly pretty safer up there. But so he looks like a really good play. You're going to get, I think, ownership on Fournier because of his price, especially on Fanduel. But again, like he's not a guy I like to play all that often unless he's a part of his stack. So I don't know if I'm going to go there. Gordon would be just like kind of okay. Augustine, again, there are times where I really like playing him, and he's just a guy for me today. So again, I just think there are better plays in these, but I hate to hedge, you know what I mean? But like all the guys I mentioned are like okay, but none of them are priority. I would say on Orlando, Vooch, on the Nets, Dinwiddie, but I have no problem playing anybody. Or nobody, I should say.
I think Vooch is the safest, best center on the board. It's a great matchup for him. We've seen how fives can just destroy this Brooklyn team. I think Vooch is the number one center. In fact, I think that if you look around the industry, you'll find most people liking him quite a bit. I think he's going to have some ownership. It's weird. We've gotten away with getting him. I mean, I think I got him at 9% the other day when he was 7,900 or something. It's just, that was weird. Like, so maybe somehow gets overlooked. I don't think so. I think that they may need a little bit more from the bigs in Brooklyn tonight, because you have or at least one big, potentially two monsters on the court at all times. And one real legitimate big. So I think that this might be a time to take a shot with Jared Allen. I understand that the numbers have been terrible. I just feel like if we can get a little bit of minutes upside, and when no one's going to play this guy, if they're not at 5.4, we know he can just absolutely dismantle this price. And I understand he could get in foul trouble with Vooch, and that doesn't really worry me. If I'm worried about Jared Allen fouling out, then I'm in great shape, because that means he's going to play 28 minutes if he doesn't, or plus. I don't know. That's sort of where I'm leaning. And I'm good with Dinwiddie too. I don't really want to go after picking on Orlando, so I would rather play the Orlando players in this game. But I do think that Dinwiddie and Jared Allen both make some sense. I don't even think that it's the worst idea to take a weird shot on DeAndre Jordan. I think it's probably the wrong slate. But then on the other side, I think that like guys you want to have some exposure to if you're playing a bunch of lineups. Wes Iwundu, if he plays 30 minutes, I don't care how low his fantasy point per minute is. He's at 3.1 with, I don't know. I just feel like I can make an argument there at 3.1 if we don't have we do have other value, but like that's just it's just an interesting thing. We've also got Markelle Fultz, who's going to get, who's going to play 30 minutes. We've got DJ Augustine, who's going to play 28 minutes. I expect a lot of these guys to potentially surpass their numbers, including Fournier. But like you, I don't really play them all that much. So maybe sprinkles here and there. But for the most part, it's going to be prioritizing Vucevic, a tiny bit maybe of Aaron Gordon and Fultz and those guys. And then on the other side, a little bit of Jared Allen and Dinwiddie.
Yeah, and I also say that Dinwiddie and Allen are pretty good coupled together, because they do run a lot of that pick and roll stuff, and Dinwiddie gets some lob assists to Allen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on.
All right, so Oklahoma City against Philly. So Oklahoma City, let's just cut right to it. I don't like anybody. Nobody projects well. Crappy matchup. The guy that projects the best is a guy I never play, who it's just the worst. Not the worst, but I mean, Danilo Gallinari seems to project the best, but even that's not good. So I'm not going to play anybody from Oklahoma City. You can make the argument Steven Adams has to play minutes because Noel has no shot against Embiid, but nobody does. I'm not going there. On the Philly side, if you want, you can always play Embiid. I mean, he projects really well, and if Vooch for some reason is that popular and you can get Embiid at lower ownership, let's go. That's fine by me. So I would play him. And I don't think anybody else is that much on my radar. Like Tobias Harris would be the next best guy, and the other guys just kind of just okay.
Yeah, this is an ugly game. I'm not really that interested. I'm a tiny bit interested if something weird happens and we hear like Muscala starting or something. Without Noel, they do play multiple bigs, but the truth is they could probably get Baisley or even Nader, and I don't know if I can get Diallo. I'm just thinking about matching up with Horford as the other big. It's just interesting to try and think about. Like, I don't know. There could be some room there. I just want to go back to that. I think that Joel Embiid is just a good play every night until he's 10K. And I think this is no different. I don't really care about matchups with Embiid. I actually like him better in tough matchups. So Embiid, and then the only other guy I want interest in is I just think Tobias Harris at 6.4 is completely in play here. You have a team that can give up some long balls. He projects well for good reason. He should play a bunch of minutes. I think it's Harris and a little bit of Harris and then some Embiid for me. I think Embiid is probably my third favorite center, but he's really close with my second favorite center. So, and they're both behind Vooch. But I like Embiid in this game, and I like a little bit of Harris, but really don't want to touch much else.
Okay. Moving on, I guess. Denver, Atlanta. So there's some coach speak from Mike Malone saying that he's really, really pissed at the way they're playing defense recently. I don't know what that means, but that's just kind of out there. With that said, Denver side, Jokic should be the only guy I would play. And I don't – maybe ownership, whatever, but I don't see a world where I'd play him at 92 where I couldn't find the 200 for Embiid. I just don't think I could do it. Even though, the Atlanta matchup's obviously pretty good, I don't think I would do it. I don't like anybody else on Golden State. On Golden State, on Denver. And on Atlanta, there's Trey and there's Collins. Those are like the two guys. There's who's considered questionable? There's
we have no, he's out. Jabari's out.
Jabari was out, but there's really nobody else on this team that even Price Herter up to 6,100 now. So it's either Young or Collins or both or neither. Trey Young at 1% ownership, not 1%, but at 5% ownership against the hashtag tough matchup. That's again one of those questions for today. Like you always want to consider him at low ownership and with the upside that he has, and he's got a tough matchup, so that's why he's got low ownership. So I don't know if I want to fade him 100%. He certainly has the possibility of getting there. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. But that's about it. That's about all I have, really.
Yeah. I just want to point out that as much as he might frustrate some of you, DeAndre Hunter is 3.9 on FanDuel. That's probably cheap enough worth taking a shot on. I know he had one fantasy point in 30 minutes. But he's going to play 30 minutes, and I just am saying at 3.9 on FanDuel, I think he's kind of in play over there. Not crazy interested in anybody really on either side of this game. I'm looking at my highest ownership on my script, and I think it's 10%. I think Alex Len is an interesting wild card play, but probably, again, the wrong slate. I don't know and we have to make sure that Collins is in fact playing. I don't think he's the worst play in the world at all. I actually think he's very solid. He's just too cheap for what he is. He should be an 8K plus player, and he's not yet. The other guy who I would encourage you to have in your script if you're going to be making a number of lineups would be Michael Porter Jr. You talk about coach speak. I understand that he got his season low in minutes after they talked about it, but or not season low, his recent low. But they said that he's a part. They actually made an announcement he's going to be a part of this team going forward, playing around 25 minutes a night. Now he didn't have that happen in the last game, but don't be surprised if you see him on the court. This guy was the number one player coming out of high school. He had injuries. He would have been a number one, like he would have been a top 3 draft pick if they would have been out of high school, maybe number 1 overall, probably. He's got an endless amount of talent, and if they're going to find spots for him. Maybe it's the wrong slate, but you're going to see this guy have games where in 20 minutes he's going to put up 40-plus fantasy points. He's extremely talented, and you'd think against a team like Atlanta he could potentially have that happen. It just feels like maybe the wrong slate because there's so many other guys to go with that maybe speculating on his minutes is not right to do on this slate.
All right. You know what? I listened to what you had to say, and I disagree. I think this is just an awesome play. I think it's exactly what you need on a slate like this. I think this would be great. I didn't even think about him. I mean, he's coming off of, the 12-minute game, which is what I like, right? And look, he's not going to go 11 for 12 from the field, like he did before, but whatever. The fact that, number one, he's got, like I said, they've been talking him up. Is he a rookie or a second-year guy?
Second year, but
whatever it is, you know what I mean? They will find an excuse to play him, I would think. Yeah. And, all that, even though it's only an 8-point spread, I think he's immune to blowout risk. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, I mean, he could be that guy that gets in there to mop that up. Mm-hmm. And you told me on Fanduel he's even cheaper.
Yeah.
I mean,
same price on Fanduel.
That's what I mean. And I think that the last two guys you said, I think guys like Hunter and Porter, I think are great. I mean, I didn't even think about them. And one thing I've been noticing, and again, I wish I really just tracked all this stuff. But so many times where we think about it and say, you know what, this is probably a pretty good shot, but it's probably the wrong slate. It's often the right slate when you think it's the wrong slate. You know what I mean? It's so I don't know. We'll look and see, but I'm definitely putting those. I like both those things. I think the Porter thing is awesome because no one's going to play him. And why is his matchup any worse than anybody else playing against Atlanta? And right. I think that's awesome actually.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an upside for it to be awesome. It's just I think the minutes are going to fluctuate, and he's going to be consistently a good tournament play only for the rest of the season.
Hey, good thing that's what we play.
Yeah, there you go. All right, ready to move on to a game that I really like, actually.
We're going to move on to Derek Favors revenge and all other kinds of stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff.
All right, so let's it's fun to have my FanDuel stuff up first, but all these guys look good on FanDuel. Let's look at Utah at New Orleans, and you would think that Utah playing at New Orleans, close spread, be a game you want to attack, and guys that project well. And good news, you're right. So on the Utah side, just again 4.5 guys I want to mention, and the same guys from every game. Gobert looks really good. Gobert's only 7,900. Wow. Gobert looks really good. He projects well. Ingles, Mitchell, Bojan, all 4 of those guys. Pick one, pick 2. You know what I mean? I wouldn't play Ingles and Bojan together, but I could play Mitchell with any of them, and I could certainly, when we go back to the New Orleans side, if I find good stuff on New Orleans, I certainly can make this a really big game for me. The other 2 guys I want to bring up, one guy you brought up a couple of slates ago, he's always on my radar. I want to get your opinion in this kind of matchup. Would be Royce O'Neal. You can tell me what you think of him. And one guy, again, that I just always throw in to my ideas when I'm playing Utah is Jordan Clarkson, just because they completely hired him to shoot the ball, right? Mm-hmm. And so he has a fully, he's unfettered when he gets out there. And a couple of games he did really well, a couple of games not so well. But again, you talk about like upside type guys in a matchup like this. He's not going to be highly owned because, quite honestly, he doesn't project all that well. But he's got, they're projecting for 25 minutes. I don't know what kind of minute upside he really has from there, but he has efficiency upside. He has some usage upside, I guess, if the game goes the way he wants. So he's a guy, again, you need a low-owned guy even to put in a stack or something like that. Mm-hmm. He'd be the other Utah guy. And New Orleans, there's Derek Favors playing against his old team. I mean, not the greatest matchup in the world, obviously, against Gobert. So he projects okay. The real news that's kind of out there is Drew Holiday, is whether he's going to play or not. So I think the last I saw was him questionable. Let me see.
That's right. He's still questionable.
Yeah. Last I saw is he was questionable. So if he doesn't play, then it really becomes like an interesting situation, as interesting as it was already. So I think any variation, I think Ingram's a really, really good play on New Orleans. And if Drew is out, then all other kinds of stuff happens, right? So Ball, boy, it's going to be so hard to play Ball at 6,800, isn't it? But
not if Drew's out for me.
That's what I mean. So, but if that's what I'm saying in general. And if Drew is out, though, interesting, right? So other guys, if Drew are out, you have to look at, or just guys who just get more minutes. Guys like maybe Kenrick Williams or JJ Redick. He might get more minutes. So again, I don't know if he's going to be out or not. But assuming he's in, I would play either Ingram or Holiday. I don't like playing both. I don't know why, but I would play Ingram or Holiday, and Ball at 60. He's not projecting really well, but boy, oh boy, he's been playing so well. I don't know if I can do it. But in a stack, if I stack the game, it's going to be hard for me not to, right? So I would say J.J. Redick could be someone I could play, but I think that the main guy is going to be Ingram. Favors going to project pretty well, and with that revenge, whatever. But I'm a little afraid. I'm a little afraid of the Gobert matchup. So I don't know if he's going to be a really, really big play for me. But Ingram, I have no problem with playing.
Yeah, I find this is like a really interesting game. Like, it is hard on the New Orleans side to pick somebody that you love. I think that Drew would be the preferred play for me, assuming that he plays. And a lot of it has to do with just pricing and the way that I truly believe you beat Utah's from the outside. The weird part is that Drew is not shooting great. Like, you want to hear something crazy? Lonzo Ball has become a shooter. I don't care. I've been saying it forever. The guy would always become a good shooter. I'm not saying that 36% is anything amazing, but on his volume, it's better than a lot of guys who are considered elite shooters, one of which being James Harden. I know it's not quite the same volume, but he is gunning these days. And he's taken 12 threes in 2 of his last three games. And I think Lonzo is an interesting tournament play. Like, just every single night, this is no different. I think we're seeing him starting to hit a little bit of his peak, and they're going to, play him more minutes. I think even if Drew's in, like, he's going to be in the 30s from now on. I think it's his job. I think they haven't, this is the whole test, other stuff is done. New Orleans is playing well, which makes me think Drew's going to play. It makes me think that everybody's going to play. They're going to try and make a playoff run, because the word on the street is we're going to get Zion back pretty soon. And they've been playing better. I know their record sucks, but like in the West, you can make it at the bottom. And if this team could somehow put together a playoff run, that would be fun and exciting. And I think they're all going to try and play because of it. I think you're going to see more significant minutes and more locked-in minutes for guys like Favors, like we've seen lately. Like, the guy went from a 20-minute-a-game player to a 30-plus minute-a-game player. I think that's what we're going to see more of. I like Favors. I don't know if the upside's enough for me to play him tonight, but I do think he's in play. He's definitely in the mix. But again, it's mostly going to be Holiday or Ingram, just like you. And on the other side, I want to play 2 of those guys where I'm playing these guys. So I want to play – you could play Mitchell and Gobert together. I have no problem with that. I love Bogdanovich tonight. It's a perfect matchup for him to put up, a good 40 fantasy points because of the way that they guard the 3 and how fast they play. I think this is the kind of pace spot where Royce O'Neal has upside. If you want to get into the 3-man part of the stack, or even just play him with one of these other guys, he could be a sneaky part of value. He'll be 2% owned. He's going to play 30-plus minutes, and he's 3.8. Shown 30-plus fantasy point upside. We know he can get there. Probably has 40 fantasy point upside in this matchup. I think that's an interesting play. I'm less on Clarkson, but I do think that he's in play as well, depending on how this game goes. I'd like him better if it was in Utah and maybe playing the blowout minutes. But I think this game stays pretty close, and I like all of those guys. So priority would be Mitchell and Gobert, but I do think just behind them are Bogdanovich and Royce O'Neal. And Royce O'Neal a little bit lower than the other 2, but I do think he's one of those. These are where no one plays him because he's not this. There's all these other things that are opening up value. And you have a guy who's going to play a lot of minutes, who projects terrific point per dollar wise in an environment that he could thrive in. So hopefully Royce O'Neal can go out there and get you a couple steals, a couple rebounds, hit a 3 or 2, and then put up his 30 fantasy points and, pay off big time in a little bit of a stack here.
So before we go on to the last 3 games here, so just where we're at right now, and as far as if you want to identify stackable games, for what we've reviewed so far, it looks to be, Utah, New Orleans, or whatchamacallit, and the Boston, Washington, right? Yeah. Those look to be the best, if you want to go that route, if you want to be a stacker type of player. And then the next one, I may be the Indiana, but I don't know. Yeah, but the Utah, New Orleans one's going to be, you for good reason. I mean, it's a high total. It's a close spread. You know where the usage is going to be.
Absolutely.
Okay. Speaking of knowing where the usage is going to be, Milwaukee, San Antonio. Okay. So Giannis is a very, very strong play. He's a very good player. He has really good points per minute. He's going to play probably a decent amount of minutes, and he's just kind of the nuts, right? So he's a great play. He's going to be highly owned, but maybe not excessively so. I don't know. and I kind of want to play him.
Yeah.
Nobody else really strikes me from Milwaukee. On the San Antonio side, so the four guys, interesting. So I'm assuming DeJounte Murray is playing. DeJounte Murray looks to be okay. DeRozan looks to be okay, and then you gotta talk me through this because LMA looks to be all right, but Lonnie Walker, I don't know. They're projecting him for minutes, and he's broken the slate a couple of times. At 3,400, I don't know, is he going to be highly owned? I didn't really expect to see him pop so much. Are guys out as we've been playing more? I feel bad. I didn't do enough research on Lonnie Walker, but I will tell you that he's projecting to be a pretty good play. So let's just take a look at this really quickly.
Yeah, double digits in back-to-back games, double-digit shot attempts in back-to-back games, 21 and 25 minutes. I think that the 25 minutes, they just played this exact same matchup. He played 25.6 minutes.
I don't know. I don't know.
Like, let's just say for argument's sake, Lonnie Walker probably ends up with more ownership tonight than Royce O'Neal. Now, they both probably have the same type of ceiling, but it's actually harder than for Walker. It's weird. I would just rather take shots at Royce O'Neal. Now, I might throw Lonnie Walker into something, but I don't think I want to make this a heavy priority or anything.
Well, let's do what we always do. Who shoots threes for San Antonio?
They honestly
don't, right?
Not very much. They shoot fine. I don't think that this is I don't think we need to get into crazy.
Okay. All right.
I think that you stick with the guys, the Murray, Aldridge, or DeRozan if you want, and everybody else is fine. But I just don't really see any reason to get crazy involved here. Okay,
sounds good to me. I kind of want to hope San Antonio plays a really good game so I can get 35 minutes out of Giannis. You want to
exactly? No, I'm very interested in Giannis. I have no interest in really that much else in this game, but I might sprinkle in all those between Walker, Murray, Aldridge, and DeRozan. I think that you could play 5 to 10% of those guys if you're playing a bunch of lineups.
Okay. Who do you? I don't want to ask you this yet. I'll ask you this after the next game. So Chicago against Dallas. All right. So welcome, as they say, to Thaddeus Young Chalk Day. Okay. So Thaddeus Young is going to be probably 50% owned, if not more, depending on where you go. Lauri Markkanen is out, and he's going to be getting 30 plus minutes, depending on game script, maybe not even depending on game script. And he's 3,700, and he's projecting to be, the best value on the board. So, that lends the question, is he fadeable? How much do you want to fade him? And that becomes a sort of a key decision on the slate. For me, I will certainly play him. He's just, again, I've been trying to rank types of guys as far as chalk goes, and I don't like the centery types. And I prefer the guys that have the ball in their hands a little more, like the point guards. So he doesn't really fit either of those. But I think he's active enough that he's gonna get his rebounds. He's gonna make maybe a few baskets, or maybe get a block or a steal or so. And I think he's probably pretty safe. So I'm not gonna go out of my way to fade him. But the real key against Chicago is Zach LaVine once again. Dude, you weren't even here the other day. He projected well. Usually doesn't even project that way. He projected well. He was in a great spot. He was literally 3% off. It's ridiculous. So I'm just going to keep on plugging him in. Now, he's projected to be 15% owned at this point. And I think part of it is because he's playing against Luka. There's more attention on the game, maybe. Maybe I guess that's why he's going to be higher owned. But I'm with what's his name, Luka showing off and making all his shots, doing whatever. You think LaVine's not going to find a way to shoot the ball 25 times again? I don't know. So. I'm not fading him. I'm going to play him as much as I can. Obviously as much as I can, but I'm certainly going to include him in most everything. Now the other guy that is the other guy you can play, the more obvious play from Markkanen being out, is you could play more Wendell Carter Jr. He is going to get more rebounds as a result of it. Now I hope he's healthy. He's got a Q tag on here, but he is probable. That's fine. Probable is good enough for me. And he's not going to project as well, so he's not going to look that great. So he's going to be lower owned, certainly, than some of these other guys. So I have no problem playing. I have no problem playing all of them. I have no problem playing LaVine and Carter and Young. And that's going to be the deal. Nobody else from Chicago really rings it for me. I mean, I played Dunn a couple of days ago. He's just never too exciting. On Dallas, Luka is Luka. He's 12-2, so that means he's going to project to be kind of just an okay value. I'm not going to – every time I say, he just looks okay, he ends up getting those raw points you need to win a slate. And he's every single time. He's getting 65, 70 points. And, you people that are jamming him in are getting lucky with other value, and they're ending up winning. So I'm not going to tell you to not play Luka just because of that arbitrary 12-2 number. And the fact is, he has like I think he has like a 40% rebound rate. The guy's crazy. That's like 2 fantasy points a minute, and he's going to be playing 30 plus minutes. I mean, I think he's legitimately got a 60-point floor nowadays. It's kind of ridiculous. So I'm not going to tell you to not play him. I don't think I can afford playing him with Levine or whatever. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to spend the extra $1,100 for him as opposed to not the extra $1,100, but spending more money on him than Giannis. But maybe that's the right idea. It's actually $1,300 from Giannis up to him. So there's a little bit of blowout risk, I guess, in this game, but no more than the Giannis blowout risk. So each time I say, maybe I don't want to play Luka, what'll end up happening, I probably won't end up playing him, and he'll probably get 70 again. So I don't know what to do. The good thing is I don't know what else I'm going to do on Dallas except, I think they already announced. Did they announce that THJ was starting already? I think there was something.
Sure.
What's that?
I haven't heard for sure yet.
I thought that's what I heard, because otherwise I was gonna spend too long talking about Justin Jackson maybe. Justin Jackson 3,500. I don't know what to do with that, but I don't know. It might be silly, but I might run like a 3-man Chicago stack and not run it back with anybody in Dallas, which would be kind of ridiculous. But maybe that's what I'll end up doing. But
it's interesting because the price you can do that because the price on Luka's so high, but like. I don't mind. Like, I'm going to probably try and be over the field on Luka. I think that I can use some speculative value plays. I prefer Giannis, and on Fanduel, I think it's pretty easy to get both of them. So I just would go that route if I was people playing on Fanduel. But I think over here on DK, like, I'm going to prefer Giannis, but I definitely will have exposure to Luka. I don't mind Justin Jackson, whether he like, if he's going to play some minutes, like, it's not the worst idea in the world. I just don't think it's exciting. I'd probably be a little bit less in the field on Thad Young because I could see like Chris Dunn could slide over and defend the 3. Like Satoransky can do the same. He's done it before. They could use Valentine to play a small 4. Like they could use – and it's not like you're playing against a team that plays with a ton of size with just Kleber and Powell, usually separate times too. Like I don't know. I just feel like Carter, worth taking a shot. I like playing – I have some Young – I really like Levine. I think that's a great way to go tonight. I bet you he ends up with slightly less ownership than we have him projected at right now. And I actually don't mind Satoransky and Dunn and all these other guys for what I mentioned. Those minutes that Markkanen goes away don't need to just go to Thaddeus. They can go to a lot of other guys. I still, again, like Thaddeus. I'll have probably more than 35% of them, but I don't know that I want to get any crazy higher in a spot that's like, well, I expect him to get there. I don't know. I just feel like this game could play a little bit differently. So, yes, I want logically you should be ahead of the field on Thaddeus, but I think I'm probably going to try and go a little bit under and take some other speculative shots.
So here's what I was going to ask you. Here's a 2x2 that no one's considering, right? Who would you prefer, Wendell Carter Jr. and Joel Embiid, or Giannis with Bismack Biyombo?
I think Carter and Embiid probably.
Right.
But it's close. Like those are all solid plays.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It is interesting. I like that 2v2. That's kind of an interesting one. We're going to get to another spot that I want to target. So that's where I'm having a little bit of trouble with these games.
Okay, let's get there. So Golden State against Sacramento. So I was wondering why my lineups the other day were looking so good, except one spot was killing me, and I didn't realize that Draymond got hurt and got pulled out of that game.
Yeah,
he ended up playing just 20 minutes and had 15 fantasy points, got pulled out of the game. So what that does is, okay, so what do we do now? So on the Golden State side, I was hoping that these guys would project a little better because I kind of wanted to play them. But the guys who project the best are going to be Damian Lee and our guy and Eric Pascal, right? So the problem is that Eric Pascal is also projected to be pretty highly owned. So I have to look and see who's starting and who's doing whatever. But those two, and then I guess slightly worse, but not even. I mean, then you have Burks and Glenn Robinson. And the guy I wanted to be interested in is freaking Willie Cauley-Stein, man. He's freaking going back to Sacramento. I don't know if he's done it already, okay? But he's been playing better. But they gave him, they had weird minutes things since he came back. They barely played him, I think it was in the last game. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, for the love of Christ, he's 4,400. And, you know, I might try it here. Let's take a look at him really quickly. Just from even a game log perspective. He only played 14 minutes, 19 minutes before. I don't know what's going on. But, hey, if he's ready to go, I mean, at a lower owned than Biz is probably going to be, for as an example, I really want to know about him. And we could talk about Kai Bowman. What if he starts? You know, I don't know. I have to kind of see, you know, what the coach says and who starts and stuff like that. But I have a feeling, like you said, that there's stuff to do on the Golden State side. I just don't know what it is. So I'll wait to hear from you on that. Yep. On the Sacramento side, for me, I'm stoked, and I'm easy in this game. So you could have to talk me off of this stuff. Is as in every game, I like Buddy Hield, just like I like Levine and Graham and all these other shooting guys. So I really like Buddy Hield a lot in this spot. He's projecting really well, and I'm going to put him among all these 7,700 guys that I'm going to want to play. And the other guy I want to play in this spot, again, especially with Draymond out or whatever, and, you know, Golden State's bigs being whatever, is I'm going to try to play Rashard Holmes as well. He's going to try to make the most of his opportunity while Bagley remains on the bench, and she remains injured. So it's those two guys. Not to say that I have anything wrong with Fox, but I think he's, in the context of this slate, a little too expensive. I don't know if I can, you know, justify paying that much more for him than all these other 7,700 guys that we've discussed already. And I guess I'll ask you, but another guy's projecting for 30 minutes, and if he plays 30 minutes, I'm gonna have to think about it, is Trevor Ariza. So that's what I got. I'm certainly gonna play Hield. I'm certainly gonna play Holmes, and I'd love to know what to do on the Golden State side, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah, so I think that Hield, Fox are my preferred guys on Sacramento to start with the easier ones. Like, I actually don't mind paying up for Fox here. I feel like he could really blow up. And I really like the other value you can get in this game as a part of a stack. Like, I don't mind playing Ariza at all, especially like I think 30 minutes is really possible. I prefer Bjelica over on Fanduel, where he's 4.8, and I really like that price on him. I think at 5.6 he's still firmly in play. And I think that he's the better play between he and Holmes personally. But again, I wouldn't fault you for going Holmes. I will have some of it as well. But for me, it's going to be Bjelica, Fox, and Hield are going to be my highest owned guys. Probably leaning with Bjelica. Well, right about the same for each of them. I do like Bjelica here. I think that there's like legitimate 40-plus upside, and I think that he's going to get there a lot of the time. So I prefer him again on FanDuel, but I like him here. On Golden State, it's pretty simple for me what I'm doing. I'm just going to overload the Pascal thing. He's going to be – I'll have more Pascal than I do Thad Young, I would guess, by the end of the day. I love Willie Cauley-Stein. I am on board here. I want to make this play. I hope people are looking at the game.
Let's go. All right. I have Bobby approval. I'm so psyched.
I love it. I think we're looking – I want to see that double-double. Oh. And I want to get even more creative here. I want to take shots, especially on FanDuel, where you won't know anything late. I think there's an outside chance you could see Kai Bowman playing a bunch of minutes tonight. So I just think it's worth speculating and taking a shot. At 3.5, we have a guy who has this season in these spots, when he's been given the opportunity, put up 50. Like, I'm not saying to expect that. I just think he's worth taking a wild card shot on at 3.5. I really like this game as a mini stack, and I think that like a 4 or 5 man, maybe two or three from one side, two from the other, maybe. And those are the guys I'm prioritizing. There's 7 guys in this game I have interest in, but especially WCS, Pascal, and then the 3 guys from Sacramento.
Must see late night TV again, huh?
I hope so, man. Hey, it's a late night hammer. There's a space in between. You can see how you're doing. If you do stack up this game and you can make some different pivots.
Oh, absolutely. Like, guys like Ariza are just great pivot type plays, you know, depending on which way you want to go, right, depending on where the rest of your lineup is. I'll tell you who else could be a ridiculous pivot if you need to do it, is you can go to Harry Giles if you want.
Yep.
I mean, he's been playing a little bit. You know what I mean? You never know.
Absolutely, and you take those shots where you can, like, and you know, like if Harry Giles all of a sudden gets 24 minutes in the game, he's going to put up 30 fantasy points.
Yep.
It's just a matter of if he ever gets it. Probably doesn't get it here, but if there was ever a game to get it, this would be the one. And I'm just going to speculate that if they give the minutes the way they should to Pascal and WCS here and play both of those guys. I really like both of them. And then, yeah, this is, I think, a great spot to get access to players. I really love Fox. I can't tell you. I like Fox better on Fanduel also, but I think that this price is actually more than fair. I think that the more I think about it, he might be the best play, or one of my favorite plays at point guard.
Well, what about these other – I mean, what about these other Golden State guys? So, I mean, like Damian Lee's been doing really well. Burks has been pretty active. And Glenn Robinson and for whatever reason, Omari Spellman's projected to get 25 minutes. I mean, do we want to play – I mean, I just don't want to play too much of this game without just doing enough work on all these guys, you know?
I'm fine with taking a shot on Spellman all the time. I think I'm just going to avoid everybody else at these prices.
Okay.
Personally, like Damian Lee at 60, whatever. Like I just think that I can get better production, and yes, he could completely get there. It's just not something that I'm probably willing to risk here. And you know, he's done it really once this year, so I don't really want to go with it.
Ooh, you know what? I wanted to give you again something I wrote down. I knew I was going to forget this. It has, since we're done with the slate, there's one other game that I had a note on. So the Chicago thing with the Thad Young, just you talk about ways that he could fail or ways that things could whatever. For whatever it's worth, I saw that Chandler Hutchinson in the G League recent game played like 38 minutes or something. So he's like you could argue he's like very stretched out. Like he could play minutes if needed. I don't know if that's what they have planned for him. You know what I mean? So again, look, should you fade Thad Young because of what I just said? No, but I mean, if a guy's 70% owned, I'll be more inclined to come up with reasons why that's not going to happen than make excuse of why it will. So again, just to maybe do a little more research.
Be like Luke Cornett getting 14 minutes instead of 10, or Shaq Harrison getting 16 instead of 10, Denzel Valentine getting 18 instead of 10. It just could spread out. I'm not saying it will, but it's just worth noting when you're going to have massive chalk. And we've mentioned some other really cheap, awesome plays. So is everyone going to play Thaddeus and Pascal together? Maybe a lot of people, but not everybody. And then we've given you other guys like Royce O'Neal you could either pivot into or you could add him into it and try and go stars and scrubs on this slate. I think balance is probably mostly better, but I actually think that the more I look at it, you're going to have the opportunity to go stars and scrubs because of the speculative cheap value.
Well, really quickly. So Thad Young, I presume, on FanDuel is a power forward, right?
Yes, he's a power forward.
They don't make him be small forward.
No.
So on FanDuel, he's 42. Okay, so he's 4,200. He's going to be highly owned. I'm just trying to see if there's even on FanDuel like any kind of pivot. Like Pascal is 3,500 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I like
at the same position. Now people might end up playing both of them.
Yeah, but then you could throw in Bielitsa at 48. See,
I would do that.
I think I'd prefer Bielitsa at 48 to Thad at 42, but I think it's close. I just think from a tournament perspective, you're getting much lower ownership on a guy with a much higher ceiling.
Or you could go up to Jared Allen at 5,100.
Yeah, there's some good spend downs at forward on DraftKings. I'm a FanDuel. I wouldn't be trying to spend down too much because all the small forward through power forward, there's a lot of options.
Right.
Before do you want to go through real quick? I'll go through just my highest owned players on the slate.
Yeah, no, go ahead, do your thing.
Yeah, so
you basically you also see you've seen my highest owned players. They're in the two lineups I kind of put together. So these are probably going to be my highest owned players.
So we've got Pascal, Marcus Smart, Giannis, Thad, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, Vucevic, Tatum, Willie Cauley-Stein, Jared Allen, Donovan Mitchell, Bogdanovich, Gobert, Fox, and then it all depends on the Washington situation with guys like McRae, which I've got just speculated and all that. And then, Embiid, Levine. Again, a lot of guys I like at 25-ish% tonight. Drew Holiday, Bradley Beal if he plays. So it's going to come down to making some tough decisions for me. But overall, I do think Pascal's smart. I don't care about the ownership. Giannis and Thad are definitely a way you could start both cash-in tournament lineups. There's plenty of ways you can pivot after that.
I guess take, again, and this is what I always look at is, especially on the big slates, if you visualize out, 2 hours after the last game or after the last game's over, you say, boy, I can't believe XYZ was 8% owned and I didn't have him. And you think of who that might be. You know what I mean? If you look at it from now, I mean, there's no way he could be this low owned. But is it possible that with all these good 8,000 guys and whatever, or the spend ups that they forget Embiid? Can't be, right?
I think there is a good chance. I mean, we keep seeing him be under-owned. And while that massive explosion game hasn't exactly been happening, this guy, if the games are close, is going to be 55. Like, you know what I mean? That's what it's going to be. So at 9,400, rather than getting too creative with a guy like Jokic or something else, I think I would just play Embiid.
Yeah.
I think we're
okay. One more thing before I go, just because I always check on this because this guy's always underpriced. Okay, so Aaron Holiday is usually like really, really underpriced on Fanduel. He still looks really good on Fanduel, but it's not as egregious of a discrepancy as it usually is.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, and don't forget sneaky. Don't forget to watch for sneaky news like T.J. McConnell being out, stuff like that. So, look, there's going to be news that comes out. Obviously, at least hopefully we get some Bradley Beal news before 8 minutes before lock. And I know people are saying, well, you should want the news to come late. Then you have an edge over whatever. You know what? Listen, I went to the cardiologist. I have very, very low blood pressure. I really do. For someone of all the stuff that I do, they say that I have the low pressure. I'm totally chilled. And I like to keep my life that way. So I would much prefer to forego the small edge I will have on the people to get the news early. I'll take the Washington news early. Thank you.
Okay. I don't mind that either. Yeah, I generally like the information, but today, because I'm scripting too, and I would prefer to have it in as well. All right, man. Hey, great doing the show with you guys. Give us your thoughts. Give us a like on YouTube. We'll have some live shows come up for you in a little bit. Erica and I are going to smooth that out actually just after this one. And good luck to everyone tonight, and let us know if you have any thoughts. We will talk to you guys soon.
See you later.